Good morning, members. Welcome to this meeting of Policy and Resources Committee. We have a number of important reports to consider this morning, which we'll deal with in our usual efficient manner. Rona, can you provide the Sederunt and any apologies, please?
Yes, thank you. We have apologies from Councillors Charteris, Dryborough, Fairbairn, Ingalls, Johnston and Marshall.
Thank you. Item 2 is declarations of interest. Would any member wish to make a declaration of interest? Councillor McClelland.
Thank you, Chair. Just item number 10, in particular, the bullet points relating to the DPS and the PCS system. Just to note that through my employment, I am involved in the tendering process for contract works, but because this item is only for noting, I don't believe I need to leave the room.
Thank you for that. Any other member? No, very good. Item 3 is a minute of the meeting of 18th January 2018. This is here for approval. Are we happy to approve that? I will take it that we are. Item 4 is a report on the membership of Convention of the Scottish Local Authorities, a report by Director Corporate Services. This report concerns the Council's continued membership of the Convention of Scottish Local Authorities. Dumfries and Galloway Council has been member of COSLA since its inception in 1975 and continues to take an active role in the organisation. Lorna will answer any questions members have. Lorna, is there anything you would like to add?
Chair, nothing to add to the report.
Thank you. Open it up to comments and questions from members. Councillor Maitland.
I would suggest strongly that we continue our membership of the Convention of Scottish Local Authorities.
If there is no other member wishing to speak, I'm very happy to second that. I beg your pardon, Councillor Nicholl, I will have to look round more carefully.
I'll maybe have to grow a bit bigger or stand up or something. No, I've not got a problem with it, but it's a reasonable sum of money that it's costing, plus the VAT, and I grudge the VAT, but that's another matter. And is it justifiable, that sum of money?
So I'm rather wondering to whom the question is directed. However, the leader wishes to come in at this point.
Just was clearly there is a financial implication of membership of COSLA, but I think we have to weigh that against what we get out of it. And indeed, the resources spokesman from COSLA is a member of this council, which I think suggests that Dumfries and Galloway Council is actually making an impact and getting our voice heard. Also, I'd recently been appointed to the Business Gateway Board, which means again that Dumfries and Galloway's situation can be promoted through COSLA. So I think it's actually, for all that it costs us money to be on COSLA, I think it actually is an opportunity to make sure that the issues which face us here in Dumfries and Galloway are promoted throughout the local authorities in Scotland.
Thank you. Councillor Nicholson.
Well, the leaders covered most of it. I think we had a strategy in the council over a number of years about how we engage with COSLA, and that strategy has paid dividends, and I think it is now past time and we should carry on a full membership.
Thank you, Councillor Nicholson. Councillor Ferguson.
Thanks very much. Like leader, I'm also in a committee at COSLA, the Scottish Joint Council. The cost of negotiating on pay alone more than covers the membership fee, because if we were to actually embark on that to have an individual negotiation with every single member of staff, it's a bottomless pit. Plus we would enjoy and not be able to welcome the very, very good socialist statements coming out of the Councillor McGregor. It's actually quite enlightening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Ferguson. Councillor Nicholl, you wish to come back in?
Yeah, just to say that I would like to thank Councillor Ferguson. That was the answer I was hoping I would get, that it was value for money. That's what I was asking.
Thank you very much, members. Any other member wishing to comment? In that case, we will move to the recommendations. 2.1 we've been asked to consider, which I think we have done. 2.2 we are asked to agree Dumfries and Galloway Council's future membership of COSLA. Are we content to agree? Take it that we are. Thank you. Item 5 is the impact of the Barclay review of business rates, report by Assessor and Electoral Registration Officer. This report is concerned with the findings of the review of non-domestic rates commissioned by the Scottish Government, its response to the review and the implementation plan, which was published at the end of last year. The review produced some 30 recommendations in August 2017, and since that time, the Scottish Assessors Association has been working closely with the Scottish Government to address the points raised by particular elements of the review. Jim Doig and Lorna Campbell are here to answer any questions members may have on the report. Is there anything either of you would wish to add at this point? Okay, thank you very much. In that case, I'll open it up to members' questions and comments. Councillor Carruthers.
Thanks, Chairman. I just think this is obviously one of our statutory obligations, so look at it, and it's probably 2.2 in particular, where we're being asked to consider the impact of the Barclay review and how this has progressed and the impact I suppose this will have on the council. And when I read this, I just seen it as being something that's maybe intending, kind of might be heading in the right direction, looking to try and attempt the right things and come to the right things for the whole of Scotland, never mind Dumfries and Galloway, but it's the resource issue. So I probably try to understand when I was reading this, what is the resource issue? It talks about, I think at 9.4, the resource issues there, so it's highlighted within the report. But I just really need to understand from probably the report author or Lorna or assessor, what does it really look like in 2 or 3 years' time? What does it mean for the council? Because its budgets aren't getting any bigger or any better. So, and what's the actual benefits to people in Dumfries and Galloway, in their view, in regards to this review? If these recommendations are implemented on the back of the Barclay review, what does that mean in real terms, Chairman? That was the crux of it. I mean, I picked up a few things throughout, but that's in the general theme. What does it actually mean for the people in Dumfries and Galloway? And actually the council, it's resource issues. It's obvious that it's got to be a resource, and which means money. It's statutory obligation, so we'll have to do that at some point.
Thank you very much. I think there's quite a lot in that, but please carry on.
Yeah, thanks very much. First of all, it is obviously a statutory obligation here, and through my assessor colleagues through the whole of Scotland, there's obviously dialogue with Scottish Government regarding potential future funding. The purpose of the report today was really just to highlight to members the implications of the Barclay review, the potential issues for my service. In terms of the funding of it, that's probably a wee bit unclear at this stage whether Scottish Government will fund that direct or that's something local authorities have to pick up. In tandem with that, I think I've also mentioned in the report there are potential issues of succession planning in my service that we need to address at the same time, and come 2022, that's something the legislation has provided for a much more compacted revaluation process, which will place significant pressure on my service and Lorna's service as well. So really, in terms of the benefit that it will bring to the public at Dumfries and Galloway, the whole Barclay review has looked at transparency, an improvement of the rating system, what assessors do, how they work collectively. But in terms of what it brings maybe hopefully a streamlined rating system, more clarity to the electorate of what's involved in the process. But as I say, at the end of the day, it's really just to flag up the potential issues at this stage.
I'll bring you back in, Councillor Carruthers. I think it might be helpful, given what's been raised. I suspect it would be worthwhile for the committee to see further updates on this, perhaps in due course. Some of this, I think, might be too early to tell, I suppose, without wishing to be glib about it. But certainly, as things develop, I think it would be sensible for us to see more on these issues as they kind of start to crystallise. But Councillor Carruthers, you wanted to come back in?
I agree entirely with your statements here, Chairman. That's something we've got to mention. I think it would be good to get, especially there'll be moments in time where it's really important that we see this type of information and the wider impacts on the council and the people in Dumfries and Galloway. There'll be risks there, I think, attached. Just one small question, if you don't mind, Chairman, round about ALIOs. Different groups in the council have different views in regards to potential savings going on. It's contained within here. It mentions about the potential relief on rates and how that goes further forward. I just wonder if maybe say a few words in regards to what does that really mean to the council? It's certainly within the report, but I mean, I think from the report author or Lorna, whoever it is, what does that really mean for the council moving on? Is there still real opportunities when it comes to ALIOs and such like?
Okay, on ALIOs?
Thanks, Chair. Actually, we just got a paper in from the Scottish Government yesterday confirming that from the 1st of April, ALIOs will still continue to be eligible for relief under mandatory charitable and discretionary relief. However, any relief awarded will be deducted from the local authority's settlement for non-domestic rates. So while the ALIOs themselves will still receive the benefit of reliefs, actually any financial saving that the local authority may have had by transferring it to an alley will be lost, because that money will be deducted from the NDR settlement that comes from Scottish Government.
Thank you for that, Chairman. I'm disappointed at that.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Councillor Brodie?
It was actually on that point, Chair, that about the ARIOs. Nearly every council, the council and the rest of Scotland have adopted ARIOs, and whether it's SNP, Labour or mixed administration. So we've probably missed a lot of savings over the years, and don't think we'll have to have a report on whether going like putting DG1 into an ARIO or some sort of trust would help the authority, because not only are we going to be paying extra interest rates, we're going to on the bill that DG1, we're also going to be paying the actual rates, which are quite large. So perhaps we'll have a report on how this affects our future adoption of ARIOs and community trusts, etc.
I'm certainly happy to consider that. Clearly, the initial priority is to get the building completed, but we'll certainly bear that in mind. Councillor Maitland?
Thank you, Chairman. Number 21. Could I ask through you just for an explanation? I'm probably being dim, but I don't absolutely understand what's meant. That's on page 24. It's to counter a known avoidance tactic, the current 42 reset period. Could you actually just explain precisely what's meant by that?
Clarification on that, please.
Thanks, Chair. At the moment where a non-domestic property is vacant, there is a relief attached to that. However, if the rateable occupier then occupies it for a short period of time, then that resets the period that they can actually get relief. They only get it for 6 months while it's empty, so it's a known rates avoidance. If they go and occupy it for a couple of weeks and then remove everything again, then that resets the entitlement to relief. So that proposal was extending that period where the reset started.
This is the box in the corner issue. Yes, thank you.
Glad that is helpful. Councillor Ferguson?
Thanks very much, Leader. I was about your comment about regular updates, which I think would be sensible. But I was actually going to ask Lorna, but I see the Chief sitting in the chamber as it is, so this is the very time to get the implications into the departmental business plans as we take to consider them and what the impact would be on those departmental services as things go forward. And yes, absolutely right, we get an update, but that would be I think we'd get a better scrutiny and a better understanding exactly what was meant if we can break it down, because it's such a wide range and subject here. I just think we should be looking at how do we include that in the business plans as the departments go forward. But I'm happy to take advice on that.
I take the point. I think it's a sensible one. I mean, there's certainly relevance to economic development, to some of the areas of activity for Communities Committee, for example, certainly to SIPL as well. So I do think that would be a sensible point. But Lauren, if that was for you?
Certainly my expectation, both for Lorna's service and for Jim's service, is that those would feature in our business plans for communities and for corporate services. And it's such a big change and further change that we need to plan for that. And as Jim said about workforce succession, Jim's just taken on a graduate surveyor in terms of planning that succession planning, and also looking at the digital processes that we can implement to make sure that we can maximise the use of the current resources we have around these things.
Councillor Ferguson,
just to come back in, so I was going to suggest a 2.3, but given that commitment, I think don't need to do that. If the council, if the committee were minded, then that's the route we should take. So I'm happy with that. Yep.
Okay, that sounds good to me. Councillor McClelland.
Thank you, Chair. Just in particular, it's point number 27 on page 25. With respect to sports club relief, I think the majority of members will know that in a previous history I had a long, lengthy association with a sporting club. But the sports club relief, that is absolutely crucial to many of our sporting organisations in the region. And I would just like it noted that I don't think we should lose sight of what that actually means to the potential survival of some clubs. So when we go into further consultation, I think we really need to be making that clear that if the rates relief is removed from a number of sporting clubs that may not be community-based, that could pose significant problems going forward to the ability for some of these sporting clubs to survive.
Okay, thank you for the comment. Jim, did you want to comment on that? No, I had misunderstood then. I think in that case it probably refers nicely to the point raised by Councillor Ferguson and the reassurance that we had in terms of tracking the wider implications of these across council departments and directorates. Leader, you wish to comment?
Thanks. It was item 5 on page 22, and it's referred to also in 6.3 with the Fresh Start relief, which unfortunately doesn't seem to have been taken up. There are changes to the relief, but I just wondered what we could do maybe to make small businesses or new businesses aware of that relief, particularly. I mean, I know that rates and rents and things like Dumfries Town Centre are also an issue for small businesses getting involved, but it could afford opportunities to bring new businesses into our town centres if people were aware that this relief was there.
Thank you. Lorna, one for you.
Yes, and it's areas we've been looking at is where we can. I mean, we do actively promote the reliefs, so any new bills that come in where we get inquiries from ratepayers, we do actively promote it, but I take the point as we could be looking to do more to promote it. It is on the website, that it is available, but it's part of the conversation we're having the team about wider communications and encouraging take-up of that relief.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Thompson.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, it's just on the back of what's kind of been said, but particularly in reference to 6.2 to do with nurseries, which I know will be picked up through SIPL, etc. And also just point 4 on page 22 as well, which is basically a new relief for day nurseries, which obviously, given the sort of high profile of that in recent months in terms of how we support a mixed economy in that area as we go forward, I think that's very helpful. And just a wee point on number 7 on page 22. I think we forget that there's actually, where it says there, it puts it in a sort of stark contrast where it's like you've got 5,000 beneficiaries of SBBS in the region, and I think it just, I think it's something that we've maybe come to take for granted, but that's a very significant number of beneficiaries in the region, and I think it's certainly supporting small businesses given the nature of our rural economy, so I think we should just recognise that.
A very fair comment indeed. It has been around so long now that it might risk being taken for granted, but it is a significant assistance. Is there any other member? Councillor Thompson, you want to come back?
Yeah, it was just on what was said before about the box and the shop thing, but are we getting to the point now where we have rates avoidance and rates evasion, where we need to chase one up criminally?
Yes, it's quite a tricky area, and I think the team are quite vigilant on that. We have never taken any, but in fact, I don't think any local authority, because I know it's quite a hot topic in our professional body, the Institute of Rates, Revenues and Valuation. It's quite often a discussion about the difference about avoidance and evasion, and I don't think any local authority have taken any legal processes further where they think there is that evasion, but it is something that's discussed quite often, and I think most local authorities are keen to pursue it where they think there's an evidence base that we could pursue that.
Okay, any other member? In which case we will turn to the recommendations. At 2.1 we're asked to note, which are we content to do. At 2.2 we're asked to consider the impact of the Barclay Review recommendations, etc. I think it might be helpful if we added to that that we'll look for further updates. I think that's appropriate once you have further information about the impact going forward. Does that seem reasonable?
Yes, we'll be working with the Scottish Government through the Scottish Assessors Association. We'll have an action plan and issues log in place, we'll have regular meetings with them, and we will be bringing matters forward. Obviously there's so much of the legislation put in place for 2018. There's still a number of the recommendations in the Barclay Review still to be legislated for by 2020 and beyond. So we can certainly, as these things come through, can update members.
Members content with that? Excellent, thank you very much. Thank you both. Item 6 is the Treasury Management Strategy 2018-19 report by Head of Finance and Procurement. This report provides members with details of the Treasury Management Strategy for the upcoming financial year and the prudential indicators supporting the Council's agreed capital investment strategy. Paul Garrett is here to answer any questions members may have on the report. Paul, is there anything you'd like to add?
Just make a couple of points, thanks. The strategy is very much consistent with that has served us well over recent years. There's just two specific points I'd like to pull out. One is that in September last year, members agreed a temporary increase in the level of funding we can hold with the Bank of Scotland, up to £25 million. Following review, we're asking members for approval to continue that on an ongoing basis as part of our strategy today. The other point to make is that we're sticking to the approach whereby we've been delaying taking out long-term borrowing to benefit from the very low short-term interest rates. That's something we're continuing to do at the minute, but the strategy recognises that increases in rates are a bit more imminent now, so we're very much responsive to potential changes, and we'll obviously take measures during the course of the year and month of that to ensure that we're not caught out and delay taking out the long-term debt too far.
Thank you very much for that. Any questions or comments from members? Councillor Brodie.
Thank you, Chair. Looking at the bottom of page 40 in the report, looking at the wee table there, authorised about the projection for future debt. All right, it's obviously going from 2016 to 17. The debt is increasing from 308 million to 364 million in 2021. Is this a sustainable thing?
Thanks. Yes. Firstly, I mean the point's correct, but that's not the actual debt levels. That's the limit on the level of debt that the council can actually undertake. That the level of debt projected is actually on the previous page, just below halfway, so it's significantly lower than that. But the point's a valid one in terms of we are anticipating an increase in the level of debt held by the council over the next 5 years. That's part of a planned approach. Members have agreed a capital investment strategy which requires significant additional investment, particularly in the current year and in the next 2 years. That's going to push our debt levels up, but you've fully taken it into account in terms of your 10-year capital investment strategy and the loan charges, borrowing costs that go alongside that. So it's fully anticipated, fully built into your plans at the moment, but we'll have to monitor that as we go on.
Okay. Councillor Brodie, yes?
Yeah, I always want to learn something from these reports. Learn something today. But another question is, you talk about bonds and equities. What's the difference between bonds and equities as far as local government borrowing, etc.?
Mr. Garrett?
Yes, well, I mean, very simply, and obviously members of the Pensions Fund will probably know this better than others, that equities are obviously investments in the stock market, in various stock markets, whereas bonds are basically largely government gilts. That's the main source of bonds for local authorities, but also borrowing from individual companies as well. Equities is seen as very much the more volatile form of investment. Bonds is seen as a more stable, it's fixed interest, so it's seen as a more stable investment, particularly gilts because they're backed by government. We looked, I mean, it's not something that we use as part of the council's borrowing and lending activity significantly. It's probably more something with the pension fund that we use.
Thank you very much. Councillor Thompson?
Thanks, Chair. It was just on page 39 at the table at the top. I was just wondering, I know there's a sort of annex showing the redemption profile, but the first column is blank, and I was just wondering if that should have been populated with some figures.
Mr. Garrett?
The purpose of the table is really to show projections going forward, so the fact that 16-17 is gone, we've generally tended not to cover that. I think probably what's happened there is that we haven't kind of reduced the box. It's probably more an administrative thing, but certainly the purpose of that table is to show projections for the current year and for the upcoming 3 financial years, so that's appropriately covered there.
Okay, if that is helpful. Any other member? In that case, we'll turn to the recommendations. 2.1, we're asked to agree the Council's Treasury Management Strategy Statement, incorporating prudential indicators and the annual investment strategy for 2018-19. Are we content to agree that? 2.2, we're asked to agree that the counterparty limit with the Council's bank, the Bank of Scotland, is increased from 20 million to 25 million on a permanent basis. Are we content to agree that? And at 2.3, we're asked to note that all of this will be subject to continual monitoring and amendment where appropriate. Are we content to note that? Thank you. Item 7 is the Council's Revenue Budget Monitoring Report 2017-18 for the period ended 31st December 2017, report by Head of Finance and Procurement. This report is now formally presented to the Committee for Information, having been provided to members previously as a briefing to assist in the budget development process. The report sets out a summary of forecast expenditure against the budgets available for each of the Council's services in the current year, including an update on progress on the delivery of agreed savings, and also provides a forecast of year-end general fund balances and funding available to support investment in required savings through the Change Fund. Mr. Garrett is still here to answer questions members may have on the report. Is there anything you'd wish to add?
Just one thing, thanks. As you say, members fully took this report into account when they set their budget in February. The one significant factor since the report was finalised is the bad weather at the end of February, start of March. Obviously, the Council incurred additional costs as a result of that. In this report, the main kind of area of service pressure has been within EEI, and that's the service most affected by additional costs during the severe weather. What we'll do is we'll really try and keep separate the impact of that bad spell from their general underlying performance and against budget this year, and we'll bring forward to members separate details of the additional costs incurred during the bad weather period. There is a Scottish Government scheme to support councils who incur exceptional costs. It's unlikely that we'll exceed the threshold that would make us eligible for that. It's up about £3.25 million. It's likely to be materially below that, and we're gathering those details together at the moment.
Very grateful for the update. I think that's helpful. Members, any questions or comments? Councillor Carruthers.
Probably 2 points, and the Bellwyn scheme I think was one of them, so that's been covered. The other one that probably stuck out, isn't obvious here. In fact, there's a couple of things in particular it refers to. Let me find it. Because the one thing, there's a couple of things, Chairman, I'll just take it from memory rather than try and find it, is we've got the White Sands, now that's in our capital maybe, but we have got the White Sands, we're looking at how that goes forward through the budget process. We identified that there was a potential, until such time as the inquiry has been progressed, but we'll look to spend money on that as we go on forward into next year. I wonder if that should be addressed or maybe later on, Chairman, but I've been certainly, we've also got potential risks around about the waste PFI this year. I mean, so we're looking at this, that's the kind of things that are certainly sprung into my mind. I know that's going to another financial year most likely, but I still think, are we ready for that? Have we looked at the risks attached to that as a council? What's the possible impacts? So there's two. I mean, I thought it was an easy, simple saving if we, as we go forward, going into next year. Again, this is about last year, but going into next year, but it's ultimately looking at savings, Chairman. So that's the 2 points that really, it's pretty much an update, really, isn't it? But two risks that sprung to my mind.
I think I'd draw the distinction between looking ahead, which I take it you are doing, and this essentially snapshot of the period ending 31st December. And clearly there are issues that we need to keep a close track of. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that, Mr. Garrett.
As the member said, the White Sands issue is probably more appropriately covered in the next report on the agenda. In terms of the waste project, without going into detail, it's something that we are looking at in great detail at the moment, all the various financial implications round about the contract and the associated service. And one of the things we're looking to do at the minute is actually revise the information presented to members to make things more transparent and clear so members get a handle on the extent of the financial implications associated with the waste PFI project. So we'll be doing that as part of setting up the budget estimates for the new financial year.
I think that would be very helpful indeed. Any other comments or questions? Councillor Brodie.
Thanks, Chair. Looking at recommendation 2.4 on the Change Fund, we're being advised that there is a significant risk or a risk of us not being able to fund early retirement, voluntary severance there. So what is our plan B? What's the plan B for that if we don't have enough money to fund these savings?
Plan B, Mr. Garrett.
I think there's 2 points there. I think firstly to point out this report was finalised before the Scottish Government announced the additional funding in the 2018-19 settlement to the Council. So that actually gave us an extra £4.8 million, which reduced the level of savings we needed to identify next year, and that in turn reduced the level of investment we'll require in those savings. So that actually helped the change fund position. But as we've said in previous years, we need to continually monitor the amount in the change fund being transferred to increase that change fund and the amounts being committed out of it as well. We'll continue to do that on an ongoing basis during the financial year. If we need to come back to members with specific measures to ask them to top up the change fund, we'll do that, but at this stage it's not something we're looking at.
Thank you very much. Councillor Nicholl.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It's to do with the previously agreed savings from staff reductions and the projected savings from staff reductions. Are we still getting the appropriate applications for the ERVS to meet our targets?
I do know these are being considered on a weekly basis. Who would like to take that? Paul, in the first instance.
Yes, as you say, the arrangements for bringing forward and approving ERVS cases have been accelerated. This year there's a workforce transition board that's been established that's meeting on a weekly basis, both to ensure the cases are coming through and also to make sure that they're able to be progressed and referred on to the pensions panel. So things have been stepped up. I mean, it is a challenging target. It was something that will need continued focus during the upcoming financial year, but certainly measures are in place now to try and ensure that that happens.
Okay, thank you very much. If there are no other members wishing to speak, we'll go to the recommendations. Are we content to note 2.1 through 2.4? Thank you. Item 8 is the Corporate Services Revenue Monitoring Report 2017-18, report by Head of Finance and Procurement. This report provides members with an overview of the financial performance against budget for corporate services for 2017-18, based on the monitoring information for the period to 31st December 2017. In summary, despite the pressures identified within the report, it is expected that the year-end position will be break-even. Paul Garrett's here to answer questions members may have on the report. Members, have you any comments or questions on this item? In that case, we'll move swiftly to the recommendations. Are we content to note 2.1 through 2.4? Thank you. Item 9 is Capital Investment Strategy Monitoring for 2017-18 for the period ending 31st December 2017. This report was also provided to all members on 2nd February 2018 as a briefing to help inform the budget development process and is presented to this committee for formal consideration. It provides members with an update on the financial and physical progress of the capital programme for the current financial year. Key issues highlighted include Schools for the Future projects, White Sands and Langham flood protection schemes, and DG1. The report also sets out the current position in respect of capital receipts and those anticipated to complete by financial year end. Mr. Garrett is in the hot seat again. Is there anything you'd wish to add to this? Okay, in that case, I'll open this up to members' comment and debate. Councillor Surtees.
Thank you, Chair. I did notice this in item 7, but I just wondered if I could refer to page 91 regarding the Stranraer Flood Protection Scheme. And the projected spend has reduced to 40k. So could you just explain from what and what that involves? I need a bit of clarity.
Mr. Garrett.
Yep, first, I've not got full details in the scheme, but what that actual line in the appendix means is purely a change in the profile of spend. So it's not actually talking about a change to the value of the project. What it's saying is in the current financial year, we're projecting just to spend 40,000 with the unused monies being carried forward to be spent in the upcoming financial year. So it's not a change in the project, it's a profile of the spend in the project.
You can attempt with that. Councillor Carruthers.
Thank you, Chairman. So this is maybe a more appropriate report in regards to the White Sands, and it's mentioned at 3.5 and 3.6. So it is a small point. We've been through the budget process, so that's behind us. I've thought, certainly taken it into consideration, there's a 6-month gap before we can actually change things, but is there no real opportunity for this council to look at this and think, unless it's happening some other how, but a £445,000 saving potentially, not to be spent this year? That's what was agreed, I think, as we go forward. There's an inquiry going on, so it is stalled. I mean, I'm just thinking in the best interest of the council and the taxpayers, is there an opportunity really over this year, because of the inquiry going on in regards to the White Sands, to create a saving of £445,000, Chairman?
Clearly, a decision on the budget has been made, but any clarification you can offer on the amount in question would be appreciated.
I think the first point to make is that the White Sands scheme is 80% Scottish Government funded, so any saving we would make in terms of stepping back from the scheme, we need to take into account the potential repayment of monies received from the Scottish Government. So that's something we could look at in more detail, but it would be more complex than just taking out the council's allocations in the capital investment strategy. They'd have to look at the implications in terms of Scottish Government funding as well.
Any other points? Councillor Thompson.
Thanks, Chair. A few questions on the ICT business systems asset class on page 96. One is just in light of just more for reassurance, the information and data, GPRS, I think it is, just in terms of, are there any implications for that in terms of the 2.5 there with information security protection and cyber security action plan for public bodies? I know we're interested in sharing data with our partners to make work more efficient in our partnership models of working. So is that taken into account for this year with legislation change? And also, secondly, I know elected members in the Chamber and beyond are sort of quite excited about the Outlook 365 mail system that we're hoping to be seeing, so we can have a much more easy interface with our iPhones and computers to read our mail. It says that the money's been spent, we've got the licenses, why aren't we seeing that, would be the question, and when is that going to happen? And thirdly, we've got let me just see here. Oh yes, the remote access, click and connect to connect from external Wi-Fi networks. We've spent 100k on that, so can we do that now, or is that another thing that's going to take a wee while to roll out? Thank you.
An expression of enthusiasm and 3 questions. I think those are all for you, Mr. McNamara.
In response to the 3 questions, the security element of it, we're currently working through the requirements of the GDPR regulations to make sure that what we're doing is compliant with those. Again, the Office 365 environment will help us do that. It will prompt and challenge documents being sent out or documents being created so that they're appropriately classified. And from that, then we can take action to make sure those documents are stored in the right place and stored effectively. Office 365 licenses have been bought. We've done the development. We're currently rolling it out at the moment. It's being rolled out as a priority to social workers. So SIPL is just about finished. We've also rolled it out to some of the offices that are currently moving about as well. So the assessors has been done, HR has been done. So we're looking to continue that rollout. We had members scheduled in for the beginning of recess. It is quite a disruptive process, and so we thought that to minimise that disruption, that would be the most appropriate time to do that. As part of that rollout, you will get the click and connect type functionality. We are currently considering to see if we can roll that out earlier. So we will know that in the next week or so. So it could be coming before Easter. And that's certainly the intention. But the core functionality of Office 365 and the upgrades were planned for the beginning of recess to minimise disruption as much as possible.
Is that Councillor Thompson, you want to come back?
Yeah, no, that's very helpful to know, and obviously we should come last really, because it's the staff that are doing the work on the ground that should be benefiting first from the rollout of that. But also, just on that, I mean, I think probably some elected members and other staff would probably be not knowing whether or not to be concerned about archives and storage and things like that, where we've had to, I know we agreed at a previous committee of this what our storage and archive and sort of data policy was, but I think the impact of that's maybe coming in now for retired members who are maybe thinking, actually, I've got emails from 5 years ago that I now have to get on a separate disk somewhere because the storage capacity isn't there to keep them as an archive sort of thing. And our storage archiving policy only restricts it to 2 years, I think it is. Will we have additional storage, because our mailboxes fill up quite a lot, so will there be more storage for that just as a practical day-to-day sort of arrangement going forward?
The intention is that, and it's the same for all staff, that email that has been in archive should be appropriately filed. In other words, as part of the records management plan and the records management system. So there will be sufficient capacity there to be able to do that.
In terms of the current working 2 gigabyte limit on the mailbox, it's a bit operational, I know, but because that fills up quickly, is that something that we're going to see a benefit with Office 365 and the mail system within that?
The answer to that is yes. We're currently migrating mailboxes at the moment. So the first, I think, 200 or 300 have been done this week. And so that's a continuing process.
Okay, thank you. That has been illuminating. Councillor Nicholl.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It's on page 92. I see we're spending 250,000 on purchase of land for burial grounds. Now, the burial grounds showed a deficit of 252,000 last year. Does this affect that figure at all? Does the interest in that 250,000 that we're spending get added to the burial revenue costs?
Mr. Garrett.
Apologies, Chair. I have to look into the detail of that. I'm certainly not aware of any interest being from unused amounts being added on, but certainly can look at that and get back to the member, but it's not my understanding.
If we could do that and provide clarification, that would be great. Any other questions or comments? No, in that case, we'll turn to the recommendations. Are we content to note 2.1, 2.2 and 2.3? Thank you. Item 10 is a procurement and commissioning regular update, financial year 2017-18, quarter 3. Report by Head of Finance and Procurement. This report provides an overview on the key procurement activities delivered during the third quarter of this financial year. It also highlights key procurement activities undertaken and identifies any issues and risks relating to procurement activity during the reporting period, and provides details of forthcoming tender opportunities and planned supplier engagement events. Karen Scott, the Procurement Commissioning Manager, is here to answer any questions members may have on the report. Is there anything you'd like to add? Okay, I'll open this up to members for comments and questions. Councillor Thompson.
Thanks, Chair. What it is, page 102, I read with interest the Maverick spend section of that, and so I was just really wanting to get a sense of it. Obviously, the tables there show the ones that are within the contracts, etc., that have gone through the sort of framework, if you like. But the Maverick spend isn't included in that. So to get a sense of what that is, I mean, do we know what that looks like? Because obviously that would help us then measure how we're improving in terms of addressing that effectively. I know there's sort of some narrative in there that does say that that's a particular focus, and obviously it should be, but it's really just to get an idea of how much Maverick spent, which is a great phrase, but it's just to get a sense of how much that was.
Maverick spending?
Thanks. In terms of the specific example that's referred to within the report, relates in particular to roads, and so where we're referring to Maverick spend, it is an issue in terms of how our system assumes that where we've got a contracted supplier, particularly on some of our national contracts, that we are actually procuring within the scope of that contract, and we're using that supplier through the contract. So I've done some further analysis for the purposes of today, just to actually see how we would actually monitor. So the action plan that's in place around that, once that's complete, then how do we actually see that improvement? And so actually in terms of the overall percentages, then that would actually bring us down. Obviously at the moment we're reporting at 80% on contract spend. If we look at the roads Maverick spend and were to remove that from that calculation, it would bring us down to 78%, so it's a 2% of a difference. So I think in that context it's perhaps not as significant as I personally thought it could have been in terms of monitoring that, but recognising that there's perhaps other areas of spend that as we go through and do more of the manual analysis that may come through. But what we will do going forward is where we're targeting these areas, we'll make sure those figures in future reports reflect the percentage of Maverick spending. We're working with our current provider of our IT system as well to see if there's different ways in how we can actually feed the information so that we can start to pick up on that Maverick spend calculation in a more regular fashion.
Councillor Thompson?
No, I appreciate that, and I look forward to seeing that, and it's reassuring as well, just to get a better sense of the scale of it in context of the whole. The second point was, which I didn't raise the first time round, was to do with the community benefit. So in the sort of iconic infographics at the back of the report, is there an opportunity there to maybe see what sort of, for all the suppliers locally, especially sort of smaller suppliers, where there's opportunities for maybe apprenticeships or other forms of community benefit, and does that tie in with other aspects of our work, such as developing our younger workforce, which is something that, you know, in terms of working with private sector partners, employers, other agencies, can we maybe join up a wee bit in the sense of what other benefits there are other than financial in terms of our procurement? Thank you.
Okay.
Absolutely, and we have been undertaking some work around how we try and join that up and working with other partners. So we had the first regional community benefit forum just before Christmas, which was hosted by the University of Glasgow. And from that, we've had a number of subsequent discussions to look at how we perhaps best organise ourselves on a regular basis, bringing in key service departments, so employability, education, and the various programmes that they run, so that we can try and map our contract opportunities over the next couple of years to some of their priorities, to try and ascertain where we could actually try and secure additional commitments from our suppliers to delivering some of those additional community benefits. Also involving communities as well in terms of how do we build that bank of what do our communities need in terms of community projects, so it doesn't just always become that kind of traditional, I'll sponsor your football tops. So we're trying to build that bank of information so that for next financial year we have a regular forum with officers within the council initially, where we actually do that mapping exercise, and thereafter we're looking at how we actually bring representation from local businesses of different sizes and some of the nationals as well. Historically, we've been having a bit of that discussion with some of our bigger suppliers, such as Graham's, who are obviously delivering some considerable community benefits as part of their Schools for the Future activity and contracts. So we're looking at actually how can we try and expand some of those models across other areas of spend, and things such as the trades DPS that's referred to within the report will also support us in having that kind of overarching agreement that we can try and have some of those conversations looking at our aggregate spend with particular suppliers when it starts to add up.
By all means.
Is it possible then for, aside from attending the external meetings with the partners and that could somehow be reported in the next report?
Yeah. Sorry, I should have finished off by saying that. Absolutely. Obviously, at the moment, we're looking at a revision of what the KPIs look like for next financial year. So there'll be an annual report, which will also include an update in terms of the community benefits that have been delivered throughout the year. And then going forward for next year, then I would expect to have some PIs in here that focuses on some sustainable outcomes, as well as just the financial that we've got at the moment, and so that should continue to develop.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Maitland.
Thank you, Chairman. It follows on actually from Councillor Thompson's initial point with respect to compliance, and I was really just going to be absolutely clear in my mind. How would we know about the levels of compliance and non-compliance? The activity plan in appendix. No, it's not an appendix. It's on page 109, which is talking about implementing appropriate internal procedures for regular reporting, which will be reported to senior management team. And I just want to be absolutely clear, how that comes and how we would know what was happening and what is the forum. I'm assuming it's here, but it's not absolutely clear that we would receive that specifically.
Okay.
I guess over recent months we have brought in some of the systems that allows us to actually automate that check-in process. And as we're identifying now, as we start to analyse that information further, there is still opportunity within that we need to analyse deeper into that through human intervention. So we have identified that in terms of what's capable within the systems. And I think coming back to the previous response in terms of the impact of the Maverick spend, we're looking to see how we can pick up on that, but it suggests that at the moment it shouldn't have a significant overall impact. So in terms of reporting through management teams, we've developed individual status reports as well that looks at a lot of the information that's presented here at a corporate level, but for each of the management teams. And so we'll drill down into some of the lower value areas as well where we've got particular concerns, so that they can actually be addressed by each of the departmental management teams, and then the actions and outcomes of that would then be brought forward and summarised within the ongoing quarterly reports being submitted to this committee.
Okay, Councillor Nicholl.
Thanks, Chair. This is not a question for the Finance Department, it's more a question for the Legal Department or the Director. It's to do with procurement and the fact that we had an exempt item on EEI on Tuesday, which showed up that there was some confusion about a procurement document in the distant past, which was taking some time to resolve, and we did get it resolved. I think we on Tuesday we did reach it, but could we make sure that in future all documents are very, very clear, stating very, very clearly the conditions and the specifications for procurement when they go out to tender, because we need to eliminate that confusion which was caused by that last case.
Karen, if it's on specifications, I think one for you.
I wasn't obviously at the committee at EI, but I think I know the particular paper you're referring to, and I think on that one we had actually entered into dispute, and so the council's belief is still, in terms of discussion with officers that I've had, that our specification on that occasion was fit for purpose. However, we did enter into some dispute around that and tried to come up with a mutually kind of risk-averse solution for that. However, in terms of how we generally adopt specifications going forward, for our higher value and more complex projects, and that's where the corporate procurement team do get involved and do have that check of those. Ultimately, it needs to come from the service departments as technical experts in terms of defining what that need is, but we're continuing to develop some online training to support with that. We've got some template documents that are available, and then just bringing someone in to just do that kind of sense check at the end, to try and kind of identify areas that could create some ambiguity further down the line if we did enter into a dispute. Then we're raising those questions as part of the development. Unfortunately, that takes a bit of time to go through that process, but that's the process we're adopting for our higher value and more complex specifications being developed.
Okay, Councillor McClellan.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's just an observation that I would like to make in a comment. Pretty much on a daily basis, I'm involved in a tendering process, and not only do I see the process that sits here in Dumfries and Galloway Council, I also see it in Cumbria County Council, Carlisle City Council, and other blue chip companies. And it's probably leading on from the comment that Councillor Thompson made, that I can see where we're moving with the process in Dumfries and Galloway Council, where maybe something like 70% of a tender is taken up in price. Then there's all the other sort of facets that would be added to that and recognised. But what I am seeing in a slight difference between Dumfries and Galloway Council and some others is sustainability, where sustainability comes into the tendering process in a number of blue chip companies. And in that sustainability, it's not only sustainability in the environment, but it's the actual sector, what you're actually doing to this sustainability in terms of the environment, the sustainability of, say, the construction industry, for instance, and also what you're actually doing in terms of the future of such industries like the construction industry, where you are bringing in apprentices and you're looking for the business actually to go beyond where we're sitting just now. And I noticed that in the council DGC tendering process, sustainability doesn't form one of these other elements. And I think it's just, I'm probably noting that, and I'm maybe suggesting that for the longevity of our businesses, that's maybe something that we should be looking at within the council.
Okay, Karen, if you want to comment on that.
I completely agree, and it is an area that is one of our priorities going forward as we continue to try and improve and develop. We recently delivered, in conjunction with Scottish Government, some training to some of our key officers who are involved in specification, writing across with the representation across all service areas, and that was looking at some of the tools that are available through Scottish Government. So the next thing we're looking to do early in the financial year is to bring that team of people back together to undertake what's called a prioritisation tool assessment. So that looks at where are the sustainable outcomes that could be achieved, where should we be focusing our efforts in trying to achieve sustainability. So things like construction will typically come up at the top of that listing, but it lets us quite often going through that process, we can pick up some other areas that may not be quite so obvious until we start probing a little bit deeper. But again, we need the technical experts to support in that exercise. So we're looking to do that, and that's something that I'd be happy to incorporate into future update reports as well, in terms of the findings of that prioritisation exercise. And what we've also started to bring in is the use of a sustainability test. So it looks at all the way through from defining the need to actually delivery. So what can we be doing in terms of that specification writing, and then what should we be asking and seeking from contractors as we move forward. So the first time we're actually looking to use that is the work we're doing at the moment in terms of developing the framework agreements for roads. So the outcomes of that sustainability test, you should start to see some of that coming through in the tender for roads, but completely take on board your point as well.
Okay, thank you for that. I think including that in the future update would certainly be very helpful. Councillor Carruthers.
Thanks, Chairman. Just a brief comment, really. It's because when I did read this, I noticed it was for noting, and it was an update, and just probably for the information of the committee itself here, is that it's one of the first scrutiny reviews that the Audit Risk and Scrutiny Committee has undertaken. So all these questions, I think, much more will be getting asked in regards to that. So just for noting, I mean, I know it is for noting, it is an update, like I say, but I think it's a lot of quite rightly scrutinising questions, but I think we'll go to a different level at the Audit Risk and Scrutiny Committee.
Thank you for the information. It's appreciated, and we'll look forward to seeing the output from that. Councillor Surtees.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. On page 106, I just noticed that one of the training events in Stranraer on the 13th of February was cancelled due to lack of interest, and I'm assuming the others went ahead, and I'm just making sure that there isn't a fundamental problem with this, attracting people to these trainings, and what's being done about that.
Karen.
Sorry, the other events have been going ahead as planned. We do recognise that for some of the events we have still had a much lower level of interest. Some of the things that we have, we've been reviewing this and trying to get feedback from those that do attend as well, and we are looking at how we undertake some survey work as well and try and engage with those that are perhaps not engaging with us at the moment, and trying to use some of our contacts through service departments who are working on a daily basis with some of these contractors to try and find out what's causing some of those barriers to getting them along. The other events have taken place. One of the changes we have made to how the events are actually structured is that we're now making sure that there's pre-booking undertaken, and what we found was where we were offering it on a drop-in basis, we thought was provide greater flexibility for businesses to attend at a time that was convenient to them without them being formally committed, actually resulted in businesses just not attending at all. So actually that's the reason we've brought in the booking system, and it also makes it easier for us in terms of monitoring, okay, if people are not attending, but I've got a member of my team already to go out and deliver that training, perhaps in Stranraer, for example, then we're doing phone rings and things as well, where we know that for example, the roads framework or the trades activity that's imminent, then we're targeting businesses specifically and calling the ones in that area to say, this is coming up and this would be the implications for you if you don't get on. Are you comfortable with the system? If not, can you book onto one of the sessions? So we are trying to be as proactive as we possibly can be to get people on to these events.
Thank you. Leader.
Thank you, Chair. Referring to the infographics at the back of the paper, Appendix 2, it's certainly gratifying to note that over £500,000 had been saved, £524,000 in revenue savings, and 249 contracts awarded to local small and medium-sized enterprises. It would be interesting to know also about the value, the total value of those contracts, because there's sometimes an inclination to think that the public sector and the private sector are always in competition with each other, but where in fact local councils actually support small and medium-sized businesses through their contracting system. And I just wondered if we could get that sort of information about the total value that we're putting into the economy through our contracts with these businesses.
Can we have that included in future?
That's information that I have. I don't have it to hand, but it is information that I gather, and so that can easily be incorporated into future reports as well.
I think that would be very helpful indeed, and I'm sure members would appreciate it. Are there any other questions or comments? In that case, we'll move to recommendations. Are we content to note the update? Thank you. I have no business deemed urgent for consideration today, so I will therefore close the meeting. Thank you for your attendance.